All right. My name is Chris Wakefield. I'm really excited to be here with two of my favorite people. This is my sibling and also the founder of Oaksmith Furniture, Dominique Tutwiley. Dominique, if you want to introduce yourself really quickly.
Yeah, I'm Dominique. I'm the founder of Oaksmith Furniture, and I design and build custom furniture and decor. And I started the company just to make custom furniture more accessible to a wider audience. I'm based in San Francisco, so I serve mostly the Bay Area, and my pronouns are they, them. And then Collier.
Oh, yes. My name is Golden. I am the head chef over at Diasporan Savant Press. And man, I do a bunch of things. I do a lot of different things: filmmaking, printmaking, and publishing books. But all of those things have a lot to do with uplifting marginalized people within the African diaspora, particularly people of size, people in recovery, working class people, children, elders, queer people, trans people, and so on. And so I started my business in the Bay Area, actually, where I lived for like a long time. And I since transitioned back to the East Coast, but I really started that business just to, I don't know, bring light to the ancestors, the queer and trans ancestors in the Black community all over the world, to connect Black people all over the world, Black, queer, and trans people, to provide beautiful visuals that people could have in their home, they could have in their classroom, they could have, gift to people, and also tools for people to use. So I publish like different workbooks and anthologies and things like that people can share and collect and have to just bring light to people at different intersections within the Black community across the diaspora, and highlighting the fact that like Black, queer, and trans people this is not a new thing, that we are ancient, we've been here forever.
Preach. I do want to just acknowledge that those of us here in the East Bay, I always want to do a land acknowledgement. We are, so I just wanted to name that this is Lisjan Ohlone territory. If any of you wouldn't mind checking out these Trust, they are a collective led by Indigenous women in Deep East Oakland, and they have something called a land tax. So if you are able to, consider donating to them any time of the year. Mm-hmm. All right, and I'll drop a link to that as well. So we have a couple of questions kind of kicked off for us. It's really just going to be a chill conversation. In my head, we're all in a living room together, drinking some tea. Thank you, Andrew.
Right, exactly.
Sitting around, maybe,
right,
chemicals in the air,
right.
And so my first question is ways of challenge and resilience that LGBTQIA business owners have to navigate on the road to success. And so one sort of guiding point is, how do you even define success as a business owner? So anybody can kick that off.
Mm. Oh, wow. That's a pretty strong one. I don't mind jumping on that one. I think there are lots of different types of challenges that come with being Black, LGBTQIA plus business owner. And just, even if you want to break it down just to the gristle of being a Black business owner, I think you could even start just being at a very basic level. And the fact is, especially among people who are like, I'm not a Black woman, but just looking at all the women in my family who've started businesses, and they start more businesses than anybody, but they also have a very difficult time getting supporters for those businesses, getting investment for those businesses that can sustain them and help them grow their business. And I think once you add more intersections onto that, I think sometimes you do see that problem gets a bit more complex and more robust and tangly for people. because even there have been times when I've been approached by kind of like Black companies or Black firms to do some work with them. They're like, yeah, we like your work, but if you could just leave some of that gay stuff out of it, we would like it a little better. So it's really, it's an interesting thing. I do think though that in terms of success for me, it's been a complicated road because I feel like on one hand, there's a way of thinking about it, you know, as a business person and being okay, well, obviously I want to be able to take care of myself, take care of my family, and have the business have longevity. If I'm just, you know, I want to make things affordable, and it's a balance of making it affordable for people, but also making sure that I'm taking care of myself and my family. Also, though, for me, I think a marker of success, even if someday I were not able to actually continue my business, which I hope I'm able to, I think I will feel successful and continue to feel successful if I'm able to support my community, which includes myself, in uplifting images, uplifting words, shining a light on the people I admire who give me strength. And that's one of the ways I measure success, but obviously there's a whole lot of other markers business-wise that come into it of just running it. Because for the first year I ran the business, I think I was just doing it, being like, yeah, I can make some money. And then I started paying taxes and stuff
Right.
like that. And it got kind of real.
You're like, oh, this got real.
Like, oh,
this is real.
I need to really be strategic about this so I can be doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Golden said. I think, you know, there's different levels. So being a business owner, no matter who you are, is a challenge. Just taking that initial risk and saying, okay, I'm gonna like, you know, put a stake in this and see what happens. And then being a Black business owner is a whole different level of that. And then being a Black queer business owner is like another level. And so all these levels, you know, they all come with their own individual challenges. And I think one of the main challenges is not having equal access to, you know, just, you know, certain things like capital up front, access to like VCs and investors and things like that. And so you kind of go into it hoping to find these mentors and resources that work for you, and maybe trying to go about it, trying to follow this path that you think you should be following, but may not work for your individual vision for your business. And so it's kind of a balance of like trying to follow the status quo with being a business owner, but then also like staying true to your vision and who you are as a unique person, and keeping that real throughout the whole process. And I think for me in particular with what I do, like I love French, I'm a woodworker, and woodworking it's well known that is a white cis male like club, and they hold really tightly to that club, and no one outside of that can get in. And there's a very specific way that you go about being a woodworker, and there's like all these resources that you have. And for me, you know, I'm self-taught. I didn't go to school to be a woodworker and follow that path, because I think honestly, I don't think it would have been very beneficial as, you know, being such an outsider in that, and then trying to navigate this field where there's all these rules and traditions that have already been set, and I don't fall into that category. And so on the one hand, I like it. It's a challenge because I feel like I can forge my own path. But on the other hand, I think I would have loved to have a group of mentors and people that look like me, getting into woodworking. Someone that I can look up to and say, oh, okay, you're doing it and you're kicking ass. So like that really inspires me. But there's really no one that I have, you know, to kind of keep me motivated in that way. And then in terms of success, I think success is, you know, making an impact on your community, and doing it on your own terms. So I think success is, it's a broad definition, but I think if you can make an impact and you can do it in the way that you set out to do it, that to me is success.
Yes. I think one thing that comes to mind is when you mentioned, both of you really mentioned just the power of the people who you've kind of had to glean things from, and then also balancing that without having to teach yourself things. There's always this interplay of community that as Black people and as queer people, we're kind of used to falling back on, that we've been taught, whether it was, volunteering at soup kitchens from the churches we went to, whether it was just doing simple things, door to door, making sure that people kind of like had things taken care of at home. There's lots of ways that we show up for each other that we then turn into our sort of modes of marketing or our modes of, community engagement with our customers. Things that just feel kind of natural and normal because we've had to rely on each other in order to survive for so long. So, there's this balance of, how do we make these businesses work? How do we generate revenue? But how do we make that sustainable for the long run? Because we're so used to being in hustle mode. And then how do you also make sure that these, these relationships remain non-extractive, that we're actually building each other up instead of just pulling things from each other, but not necessarily, resetting the soil, if I can use an agricultural example.
Right.
So yeah, success is something that, we're, in a lot of ways, we're thinking about it communally all the time because, a lot of our resources come from our human capital that we share with each other. But there's just definitely a lot of ways that, it's draining, walking this road or navigating this road.
Definitely. And if I could just respond quick to something Dominique was saying, Dominique, I totally hear you too on the gatekeeping part. Like I'm a printmaker and that is also a field and publishing just in general. To be a person to walk into a print studio and be like, I would like these books. Even when I say, I come in with the specs all together and they're like, are you sure? You need someone to help you.
Yes.
I'm like, no, I actually know my word. I don't need any help. But it's interesting to have that. It's so, I feel validating, like seeing, hearing you say that, because it is just one of those things where, the gatekeeping, when it's like coming to particularly to like a craft, that going into print studios and teaching myself among all these people who had a chance to go and get, maybe even advanced degrees in this and then have mentors all the way through and etc. And just standing my ground and being like, yeah, well, I deserve to be here as well, and yeah, it's really powerful.
Yeah, just going to like the hardware store or going to a lumber yard. Same thing. I can go in and ask for something very specific and I know exactly what I want and I still get the looks of like, why are you here? Like, did you take a wrong turn? Did you get lost? Like, and it's just part of that world.
For sure.
It's been interesting being in the hemp space because, above ground, hemp and cannabis are very much a white man's industry. Below ground, we know that's a different story. Below ground, the traditional industry, the one that actually paved the way for the above ground industry, is one built by Black and brown people. And so there's this interesting dichotomy where the people who actually kind of learned the ins and outs of an industry or of the plant itself, the actual products, its uses, its benefits, et cetera, a lot of those folks are either locked up, or if they're not locked up directly because of that, they are also being marginalized out because they don't have that same access to capital or necessarily, the same access to resources that the other folks can just sort of jump into. And so there's always sort of, there's this constant navigation of like, okay, I want to make sure that our supply chain is sound and we're actually giving our money back to the people who built this industry. And so that's something that I think we think about a lot about at Brown Sugar Botanicals.
Yes.
I'm wondering, thinking about vision, just sort of like the long-term perspective, what do we, as Black, queer, trans, non-binary folks, how do we sort of see inclusive economic access across our society taking place? So, what does an inclusive society look like? That maybe is one starting point.
I think that's a tricky one because that's two different questions, right? It's like, how do I see it taking place? What do I think is possible? Give me an hour for both. But no,
we got the weekend.
That's deep though. It's deep. It's deep. I feel like a lot of, I mean, I don't know if this is the answer to your question, but I do feel like a lot of the mutual aid things I've been seeing going on since the pandemic started. I mean, of course, I feel like there's also a way in which if you're like a Black working class person, mutual aid is just a term for something that you already knew about a million years ago. You know what I mean? Everybody's kind of sharing things and making sure people have things they need. But also too, I feel like I see a lot of, I had a business coach that approached me one time at a place I was vending who said, hey, you know, I think you're trying to make things really accessible to people, but I don't think you'll be able to make any money doing that if you keep doing it the way you're doing. Can I be your coach for free? And so for the first year I had my business, this person coached me. And what her name is Jimena, what her main coaching job is, her dream job actually, which I think is so exciting and I hope to see more of, is of coaching queer people of color particularly, in building sustainable worker-owned collectives. And I think that that's something that I've seen happen here in Philadelphia a bit. I'm seeing happen more and more. And that's one example I can think of that I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people getting more into it and building the skills to make something like that sustainable and work, so that, yeah, people can be creative. Hey, man, I don't want to share her email address. And she used to work at the SF LGBT Center, but she stopped. But her name is, I'll write her name in the comments. I don't know if she still does it anymore, but a genius.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think to kind of make this sustainable, it's as we kind of like learn the ins and outs, and we learn them the hard way, then making sure that we're keeping that information within the community and then passing it on to like the next generation. And then hopefully over time, there becomes this bigger network that is built of everything that we've learned and kind of everything that we've done, kind of unconventionally. And then slowly we have this network of information that we build up and we can share that. Because I think there's hesitation that if you're doing something and you're kind of going off the path and you're like kind of doing like these weird experiments, that it's not really worth sharing. But I think all those things are like huge learning curves. And if we can make that journey easier for the next person, then I think that's really what we need to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point, is how do we create these intergenerational supports? And I feel like that's also challenging in the sense that, a lot of our society is structured so that we kind of identify very closely with our age group. There's a little bit of, intergenerational beef at times. I think that and then also not even that, but thinking about even just like the AIDS crisis, thinking about how many ancestors we've actually lost, that we would have to sort of point to that were just, decimated by years of neglect, years of intentional government neglect.
Right.
There's always sort of a target on our backs. And so I think that and we can kind of come closer together, Ashe, while we can kind of come closer together and support each other, we are also still navigating the typical human things that everybody else has to deal with, family things, interpersonal, school, all the things you got to try to climb through in society. And so, we can even still see ways that we have divisions, and we can still see ways that we need to kind of work on repairing our relationships with each other, as well as repairing our relationships with the folks who would be mentors or would be mentees. So there's definitely this constant challenge of, how do I look out for myself and my business? How am I also looking out for the folks who are coming after me and for those who have come before me? It's really interesting. I wonder, so thinking about the specifics of your work, what are some ways that you see yourselves giving back?
I can go first. I think for me, I have kind of made made it very clear as I've started this business that I don't come from a wealthy family. I don't have rich parents. I know what it is to live in very small apartments and have to move around a lot. And so I've been very focused on kind of keeping that narrative at the front and center of my business. And everything that I do and everything that I approach, I think about it in that lens of if I were me, if I were my own customer, what would I want and need? And I think with custom furniture, currently it's viewed as something that is aspirational, and it's something that you don't even attempt to have until you have the perfect home and you have the perfect family and you live in the perfect city. And I think like custom furniture really, its ideal application is this urban living, living in these small spaces, these really unconventional places of where, like you're live in a studio and you have all these roommates and you're trying to make it work, and you want to have nice things and it's hard to find in the market because all these mass-produced things, may not really be your style. It may not fit your budget. It may not fit your space. And so you're struggling all the time to kind of build this home with things that you like, but you really can't find it. And so for me, I try to work with everyone with, every budget as possible, and really try to work with the client one-on-one with getting them something that they're gonna love and something that they can actually afford. And so, yeah, I think for me, it's just taking that personal experience that I've had and then applying it to this mission for my business, and trying to make a difference that way.
Yeah, I really love that. I think that I agree with you completely. I used to have a membership very briefly at Tech Shop in San Francisco. And I would use some of the tools there and things like that, the lathe and stuff like that. And there would be these men in there working on their furniture. And I was just like, it does feel very aspirational. It feels like you'd have a home that's an architectural digest for you to have nice things in your home. And I love your mission. So I also feel like in reference to my particular business, I feel like one of the ways I give back, there's a few ways I see that happening. One is I also think that art can be something that feels very kind of out of reach for a lot of people. Having nice art in one's home, having beautiful things in one's home, it's kind of like, well, unless you're collecting it, then it's difficult to have, or it's not for everybody. And I actually don't agree with that at all. And which is why I really strive to find that balance I was talking about before, and really making things as affordable as I can, while like really making sure that I'm taking care of myself and being a resource to my family and to myself. So that's one of the ways, just trying to keep my prices like very, very affordable. And then of course, if people, there have definitely been times where people at shows or at other places have said, yeah, hey, I can't afford this. And I'm like, well, let's figure it out. You know what I mean? Because I don't want it to be the case that I know exactly what that's like, to want something to feel speaking to your soul and you just simply cannot, you don't have it to do it. You know what I mean? Right. And I don't want to, I might not have a ton of money, but I love tricking on people at shows. I'm just like, I might not be able to, shower people with money phones, but I can share my art. And I also can share the skills. I mean, that thing came back to that kind of gatekeeping where certain types of skills, for instance, right now I'm learning letterpress, which is kind of almost like it's got this kind of mystique around it, because you kind of need to apprentice with someone to learn it a lot of times. You kind of need to pay a lot of money. In San Francisco, the San Francisco Center for the Book, if you want to be letterpress certified, it's going to cost you $2,000 or $3,000. And that's not even to rent the machine if you want to run the machine, because no one owns a letterpress. You have to own that machine, which are tons of pounds. You know what I mean? Like, and then the paper and everything else is very exclusive. And so once I know how to do something, it's like each one teach one. I love to be like, hey, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to use, for instance, the Adobe suite, which I had to teach myself, which was grueling to learn in a lot of ways, so humiliating, honestly. Yeah. But now that I know, I can help somebody do something, that they don't know how to do. So skill sharing is one of those ways. And definitely dedicating a part of my practice as I'm able, for sure, to making sure that part of my work, like I would like to continue to operate on a business model as long as I'm able, and I hope that's forever, where I can say, for instance, like there are organizations in Philadelphia or in other places, I'm like, I really believe in what you're doing, and I'd like to be able to offer you this service for very little money or no money, as just a part of me being like, this is something I can do. I can do it this many times a year and be able to like fit it in, you know what I mean? In addition to other things. I think that trying to think about, what I can do, how I can move in a way that's sustainable, because I think that's the key. Like I'm just a finite little resource who runs a business by myself, and it's so much work. And so really it's been trying to learn, again, that real tight wire dance of being able to do these things, but not so much that I end up kind of sabotaging myself either, where I'm not making money or I'm not, you know what I mean? It really is kind of a fine line sometimes, especially because I feel like, I don't make things that are very, very expensive. So it's like, it's a bit of a tight wire thing, but I think sharing skills and also mentoring, like I've had people approach me. I have one mentee right now who approached me on Instagram, just a little non-binary Black person hit me up on Instagram talking about, hey, do you take mentees? I was like, hey, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what, you think I know, but tell me what it is you want to know about. And if I can't help you, I definitely will help you. And you can ask me whatever, you know what I mean? That's super important, because I didn't have anybody to ask about a lot of stuff. So I think those are some of the ways I see that happening in my business, though. I'm always trying to think about other ways that can happen too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that delicate balance of trying to keep your business afloat and then also trying to make sure you're helping as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. It's hard to balance the two. But I think you're right. I think it comes from the more we build community, then there are more opportunities we have to provide those resources for people that maybe can't afford like the full price of something. And so if we have, the community kind of contributing to that from the outside, and then you can pass that on to people that, that really love your work, but, may not be able to afford it. I think figuring out that, that community resource would be huge.
I think one of the things that when my business partner and I were starting Brown Sugar Botanicals, we were trying to figure out, how do we share CBD business in a way that feels like a social enterprise, is a social enterprise, has a social impact mission, but is a little bit more invested in having every step of the way being involved with our mission. So it's not just we give 10% a month to this XYZ company, or we do, to this nonprofit. We wanted to make sure if we're thinking about social impact, that begins with literally every step of our supply chain. That begins with every supplier that we work with.
Right.
That begins with who we source our inventory from. That begins with who grows our herbs. And so when we kind of really started thinking about having an inclusive supply chain as the core of our model, then this sort of whole new world of possibility kind of opened up. We were like, oh, so in every sense of the word, we want to, we want to set an example that you can invest at every point of your business in people who you want to see succeed, and in people who you think will be able to change the narratives. So for example, one of our herb growers, Jazz, who grows our, our borage, some of our lavender as well. And they just grow out of a really beautiful community plot in South Central. And they are trained, they're trained herbalists. They went to the UC Santa Cruz farming apprenticeship program, and they're also self-taught as well. And so there's always this sort of like opportunity to find people who've been perfecting their craft, struggling through it, right? But perfecting their craft and just do it out of sheer love, do it out of the love for the plant. And they're like, you know what, I kind of want to bring this to a larger audience. Well, if there's more companies who are looking and who are actually going to prioritize them over someone who might be a little bit more mass produced and a little bit cheaper, but doesn't need the money as much, right? You know, you're going to see a completely different sort of reverberation back of that money and of that empowerment into our communities. And so, yeah, that's something I just want to highlight, is that we're naming these ways that we naturally want to invest in our people. And these are things that we can kind of continue to teach each other and perfect over time. So I'm curious, you know, if also if people have any questions or any thoughts for us, otherwise we can keep it pushing. I'm thinking about, you know, we've kind of talked a little bit about other folks that we've either seen as mentors or seen as examples or seen as shining lights. Are there any other types of like business models or organizational models, you know, by either organizations or individuals that we've kind of seen that we want to uplift? I did mention Gay For You. So the thing about Gay For You, they're really dope. They're run by a group of trans Latinas in their shop is in West Oakland. And they work, pretty much they have the shop open Saturdays and Sundays, and trans people of color always eat free. And so in a sense, we see that as a way to subsidize, you know, people who have maybe a little bit more access to money structurally, kind of subsidizing money and resources, or food in this case, for people who have less access. And that's a model that I really enjoy seeing out there.
I want to shout out, I don't know the printmaker's name, but when I did the Oakland print fair like 3 years ago, there was a printmaker there whose work was amazing. I really wish she had connected a little bit more, but it was a very hectic 2-day kind of thing. And that person had a sliding scale on their table, and was like, if you are a person with structural wealth, if you have been given wealth, if you are white, you will pay this much. People who do not have that could pay this much. And for these people, it is free. And people felt really offended by that at the show, but I thought, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then also that person, that does make room for people who would like to own something. That way, that's one way this person is taking care of her business, where she's like, okay, well, you know, I can spread this cost out. And I think that was really inspiring to me. I still am trying to figure out how to do that with my own work in terms of pricing. But I do think first, maybe that is that person. Not Roxana Dada. No, not Girasola. Not that person who I know from Oakland. That person, Francis. Yes. I didn't want to say their name, but you said so. Not that person, but it might be Roxana. But I don't think it was Roxanne either, because I know them too. But yeah, I think that's a beautiful model. And I think part of the way I end up doing that too is with institutions. Like I think if an institution wants to collect my work, then I'm like, okay, well then this is a way that for an institution, you should be actually paying me more money so that I can offset the cost for individuals. You have the coins. So like if you're the Met, or if you're, you know, Cambridge or Oxford, run me the coins. And that way I can like spread things out a little bit more for people who are not huge institutions. Oh my God, yes. Come on, Chris. You better talk about that in this chat. You better drop that.
Okay, real quick. So but no, I think that brings up a good point. It's like when people want to give back, and then when we tell you this is how we want you to give back, it's like, oh no, that's actually not the way we wanted to give back. I think there's an opportunity there in that fear response, or in that stress, or in that defensiveness. There's a huge opportunity to be like, wait, why do I have a reaction to literally redistributing the resources that I know historically I should not have had equal access to, because they were not on my land. They were not of my people. Right. So when we think about, sliding scale based on, you know, structural access to resources, because resources have been historically given in a structured way to benefit certain folks. When we think about flipping that upside down, sometimes I think what we see happen first is tokenization, is we see, okay, well, put a Black person there. Okay. Put a woman there. Put a queer person there. Starting to see, put a trans person there, because, oh yeah, we're still here. We are still very behind on figuring out ableism. We're still very behind on figuring out undocumented identities and how folks who don't have papers have to navigate a lot of structural challenges here in this empire. So there's so many ways that we could be bringing people to the table, and we should actually just be putting together our resources, maybe hiring Dominique to build a table, for example, to have these conversations in a non-hierarchical way that actually honors the intelligence and the skill sets and the resources and the love that we actually have for doing the work that we do. So yeah, just want to bring in, when we think about inclusivity, it's not something where it's going to stop at bring in this person with this identity and boom, we're done. It's a matter of making sure that they actually have ownership and power in that conversation, whether that's a supplier in our supply chain, or whether that's a customer, or who's going to maybe put us on something new, or another business owner, who we can collaborate with down the line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. I think especially like in this age where, we've had this collective awareness of privilege and everything that entails. There's still this there's still this kind of, we get people kind of fighting back when you put it on display like that. Like, yeah, if you are at a show, you should have that tiered pricing. It shouldn't be something that's like done behind closed doors, or like, okay, yeah, you pay this price. Okay, yeah, you pay this price over here. Like, yeah, just, have that out in the open and very clear. Like, you have privilege in this way, and here's how that translates into how you contribute to this brand or this business. And I think the more we kind of like normalize that and make that a very honest conversation and keep that out in the open, then I think that will just become, hopefully, the social norm, where we're not afraid to kind of handle things differently with different clients, based on their social status, and make sure that we're kind of making things more accessible for people that need those resources.
Also, too, I'm sorry, Dominique, go ahead. I just want to say, too, for me personally, I'm not really making my work for straight people, for white people, for people. I really am creating something with my community in mind. And so, as far as I'm concerned, if you're an institution that's a predominantly white institution, or if there's just certain places, locations you're going to approach my business from where I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. This is not for you. For you to have it means someone else does not have it. And if you really want it, here's what it costs. And if that's not okay for you, then that's okay. That actually is okay, because like I say, I do this for a reason, to serve certain people. And it's not like only those people can have it, but it's purposeful for my communities. And so and I think that there's a sense, like I remember last year during the uprisings, I was looking back at my like tax stuff, getting ready for this round of taxes, and I was like, wow, I had so much guilt money like pouring up into my coffers last June, July. Right. And all of these brands approaching me and institutions approaching me to make art for them. And it was really interesting, because I was like, again, that thing of, inclusivity for me is kind of a tricky word, because I'm like, I'm not sure how much I care about being included, because for you to include me means you have the power to include me. I'm not interested in being included because I want there to be justice. Like, I'm not interested in being included. You know what I mean? I don't want to be included in your party. I don't want you to have the power to say, oh, yes, trans Negro, I include you. You don't have the power to.
Exactly.
So it's just an interesting thing. It's like, yeah, I think, yeah, especially for my work, I feel like I'm making this. You're not people.
Oh, did we lose Golden?
Let me text them.
Oh.
I hear you in the back, Golden.
Back. Okay.
Keeps you right. It was getting deep. It wouldn't be a panel discussion without a little tech difficulty.
Right. Yeah, this podcast would not be complete without some sort of technical failure.
But yeah, it's just, it's like, don't try to like put, as a business person, it's like, of course I want to make money. I want to have resources to share with people. I want to be able to send my mom money. I want to be able to do things. Sure. And I don't want to be taken advantage of. And my creativity is not some collared pet for you to trot around in your institution and pretend that you are not who you are. If you want to approach my business, you come with respect. Respect includes money.
Yeah.
As in addition to other things.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But that concept is not a new concept, right? Like if you're a restaurant, for example, and someone approaches you and wants to do a private event, that person expects to pay more for that private event because you're shutting down your restaurant for the day, right? You're inconveniencing all those customers for that day, and you're favoring this one person who's having this private event, right? And so, yeah, you're going to charge that person more money, and that's expected. That makes sense. And so I think bringing that concept into Black queer businesses is the same thing. As a Black queer business owner, your priority should be serving your Black and queer customers. And if someone outside that group comes and wants your services as well, they are taking away from your core pool of clients. And so because they're taking that away, they should pay a premium for that. And so, yeah, I think it's a concept we see in other, business types, but we don't always assume that we can apply that to what we're doing. And I think that's actually a good way to approach
because
it.
Our work as Black creative people, Black intellectual people, I just think our creativity, especially in this country that has taken so much and takes, and this extracts so much from African American people. And just so much wealth, just take, and surveillance of the intellectual work we do, the creative work we do, and then undervalues it. Like it's not even real. So yeah, you need to pay. You're just gonna pay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, that's it.
Nah, we see that undervaluation in every side of society. And I think that's what's interesting is that, we're still trying to navigate capitalism, even as we're trying to replace it. We still have to figure out ways to monetize ourselves, monetize our skills. But then if we, still waiting for my reparations, if we know that our sheer creativity, thank you, James, if we know that our sheer creativity generates billions of dollars of revenue in ads for these social media platforms, for these, for TikTok, Instagram, whatever, if our ability to just make up a dance on the spot or to build something for someone that is custom, that fits their creative flair, or, just has any type of gift that we can give to someone else that could be capitalized upon, we see that it will be capitalized upon. And we see that we don't necessarily get our fair share due because we've historically been sort of put at the bottom of this value chain. And so it's like, if we want to be able to sort of compete, there has to be a premium put back on the stuff that we put out because it's actually been taken up front, And so I think we're flipping narratives left and right. We have to flip power left and right. And that has to be an intentional goal. And unless people want to say, okay, Black Lives Matter, put that in the window, pay reparations now, put that on the window right next to it, I'm not going to believe you when you say Black Lives Matter. I'm not going to believe you when you say, oh, Queer Lives Matter. When you know that there is a homeless shelter with queer youth, with trans women, with trans men, with people who aren't necessarily being able to be told that their lives matter in a meaningful way, when we know that these are fixable problems. So there's just a conversation about how do we shift not just the ways that our businesses act, but like how do we actually shift the way that we expect our economy to act as a whole?
Right.
I really feel it's 3:16. If there's any questions people have, again, we're open to some questions, some feedback. We really are just here talking, shooting the ish. I think when you mentioned mutual aid, Golden, I was thinking about that because there does tend to be sort of a focus on how do organizations, or like how does a 501c3 maybe give back or whatever. But there are people kind of, like you said, like there are people who have been building these sort of alternative ways of exchanging resources for years. And so there are always going to be individuals who are doing really dope work and trying to figure out ways to pair up with other individuals to make sure that, you know, they can still get ahead. And so I'm wondering, like, are there ways that we see new types of, you know, what's the next wave of mutual aid going to look like if we think about this in maybe like 20 years? Like, let's say we've done a great job at convincing everybody to be truly equitable with how they spend their money. You know, what is it going to look like to take that to the next step? And for me, I think one thing that comes to mind is like figuring out how to prioritize interpersonal healing and sociocultural healing, so that we're actually not just like cannibalizing each other when things hit the fan, because they will always hit the fan. People always have problems. And so that we're not, you know, limiting the sort of social justice bandwidth that we have to do good, but then like burning out when sometimes bridges get burned. I think that's something that comes to mind.
Ooh, 20 years. I'm like,
Right? I can't even figure out next week.
What do we have in 20 years?
I need to open my third eye on that one. But I mean, honestly, Chris, I think what you were saying in terms of, even when you were talking about your own business practice and in the supply chain, I think that piece right there is so huge. I can say what I would like. I don't know what it will look like. I have dreams, so I'll speak on a dream. And that is that I think something, you know, being able to, I don't know, build more connected networks of artists, for sure. I mean, I think of business people in general, but and between artists and organizations, or between art. I mean, I just think there's so many among us all, between all of our gifts, we really can circumvent kind of a lot of these purely extractive things that are convenient, and ways of kind of buying or attaining that are very convenient, but are ultimately clipping everyone's roots, you know, so that one or two or three, or a room full of, you know, stakeholders can get rich. I mean, I think that what you said was so beautiful about the supply chain, that for your business, where it's like, you know, my business is just me, so I know what a supply chain is. But I do think like trying to be really intentional about that piece, you know, when it comes to like food, when it comes to, you know, whatever you can get sustainably and locally, and be more connected. Like, I think those kind of networks, I would like to see those things strengthen in a major way, because the convenient thing isn't always the best thing. And yeah, I just think the more connected we are, I'm not sure how that'll happen. I think I see people working on ways, and I certainly am scheming in my own way, but that's something I'd like to see.
Yeah, I agree. I think the supply chain is kind of the key to it, because we are living in this age of Amazon, right, and 2-day shipping. And so the consumer at this point has been trained that the quicker you get something, the better. That's how they base their decision making, is how quickly can I get this? And I think we have to shift that expectation of, no, actually, you know, most things are worth waiting for. Like, we don't need everything in 2 days. And I think if we shift the value of that, and we place more value on things that take time to be made and created, because right now we place value on things that are available now. I can have it now. I can buy it now. I want that now, and I'm, you know, and so it's like there's no like waiting period, and there's no appreciation for the process anymore. And so as small business owners, like, you're constantly struggling with that. You're trying to please your customer, your client, and you're trying to get something to them as quickly as possible. instead of being honest with the fact that, like, you know, especially for me, like for custom furniture, it's like, that's what I've struggled with, is slowly increasing how I quote lead times. When I first started, I was like, oh yeah, I can have that to you in 2 weeks. Yeah, I can have that to you in 4 weeks. And now it's like, no, actually it's going to take like 10 to 12 weeks. And like being okay to say that to someone it's really, really hard, because in the back of my mind, I'm always like, well, why should they wait 12 weeks? They can go get that at Crate and Barrel in, you know, a week, you know, and I've lost a customer, but yeah, it's going to be shifting that expectation. And I don't know how we shift that, but yeah, I think if we just have more patience as a capitalistic society, you know, that's how we get there.
Amen. And really just being like, I think just being comfortable with knowing that also it's like, it's not just about, okay, well, if D can't get me this custom bookshelf in 2 months, then I got to go somewhere else. It's like, if D had a larger team, they could maybe get you that custom bookshelf a little faster, you know? So it's also just a matter of like, how do we scale up? How do we add resources so that we do, in a sense, add more time? And this reminds me of this Instagram quote. Sorry, just going a little tangent. There's an Instagram quote that's like, everybody has the same hours in the day as Beyonce. And we were just talking about this. I think I was just talking about this with Golden. Maybe it was Kizzy. We don't have the same hours in the day as Beyonce because Beyonce has 300 people working on her alone. She got 24 hours times 300. She does not.
Right. She got all day hours.
She got their hours. Their 8 hours a day.
All day life force. She owns that.
She has her hours.
Listen, I love Beyonce. Lemonade, one of the best albums of the last 20 years. But we have to acknowledge that time is not fairly distributed. Okay, Michelle, we're not gonna hit. But yeah, we're not.
It's such a violent kind of idea that people say that to themselves. It's so violent. It's so violent because she's a millionaire, first of all. Second of all, she has a staff. She has a staff. You know, she has a staff, like you were saying, Dominique. If Dominique had a team of 20 people, and all Dominique was ideating all day, well, yeah, you can have furniture this week. Come pick it up. You know,
it really what happened. I was being right, everyone.
But it's like this violence people do to themselves, almost comparing themselves to someone who is so wealthy, and works hard. But I mean, let's be real. You know what I mean? Ugh. Ooh, I can't stand that. I can't stand that.
We'll get there one day. We have 5 minutes. Is there any final thoughts, any questions, concerns, feedback, freestyles? Favorite song? Just kidding. Compare culture is violent.
Yeah, it really is super. And I think there's so much. Ooh, boosting a question. What's the question?
What supports would be most helpful for you? Yes. Thank you.
Investors. If I'm honest, I feel like that really is one. I'm serious. I feel like it's one of those things. Like I started my business with money from savings I had from working jobs that almost killed me. And my business has run on that money. You know what I mean? And there is no, I'm like tightroping above this chasm. And this is not great expectations. There is no benefactor waiting to, catch me if I fall. It's very serious. So I'm like, I feel like I want to see more people having more access to investors. And just like there's so much money out there for so many silly things. I'd be like, damn, really?
Oh, yeah.
Really? And then I see people doing such good work and really having to struggle because they're doing work that uplifts certain communities or, what have you. So I think the main things I see people running small businesses, they really need, especially Black people, especially Black trans people, Black queer people.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, investors for sure. And just having that safety net to try an idea for a month. And if it doesn't work, oh, well, on to the next idea. Like that's what we see in like Silicon Valley. How many apps have been created with like millions of dollars? Most have probably failed. We don't hear about it because it doesn't matter. You know, there's no risk in that field. And so if you have investors and you have someone with, you know, that has your back, and you have a little bit of a safety net to maybe you're at a fork in the road in your business and you want to, should I try this or should I try this? You kind of have to, like, every decision has to be the right decision. Like there's so much pressure at every step of the way to make the right decision because it has to be profitable. Like it has to grow your business. And without that safety net, you know, who knows how far you could take your idea, and you just can't because you have a very limited, you know, pool of resources, and you can't do some crazy idea in your head and see if it works, because that has real consequences. So yeah, just having that backing is, I think huge. I think it kind of frees up, you know, you kind of feel more free to take on these big ideas that seem daunting, but you know, maybe you feel like it's the right thing to do. And who knows where you can go with that. Like for me, you know, I would love more time just to prototype random things in my sketchbook, you know, but I don't necessarily have that time or the resources to do that. And so, you know, I'm kind of just going from commission to commission to commission. And for me, I'm trying to figure out, how do I work in time to just do whatever is in my head, whatever I can imagine. And yeah, and that comes down to monetary support, really. So.
Right. Well, we getting up to time. I just want to thank y'all for showing up today, for setting aside time in our busy schedules, and just for speaking truth to power. And I appreciate all 25 of y'all who came. Keita, you had a question. I am so sorry I didn't see it in the Q&A, but the question of how do we unapologetically promote self-determination, I hope we can think about that as we can. It's, you know,
yeah, definitely.
That's a huge one. It's amazing. Thank you for this opportunity too, Chris. This is a great panel. I really appreciate being on it. And just, I really does feel like we on a couch somewhere. We out by the lake. It's beautiful. It's casually brilliant. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great.
Yes.
Hi, Trisha.
Oh man, it's fair. All right. Well, did we discuss how we close these things out? Will it automatically close? I'm gonna just sit here talking with y'all until you want to. But if this just ends, then I hope y'all have a great weekend.
Indeed.
All right.
I mean,
yeah. Should we stay?
What do we do? Yeah. Are we just gonna chill until it's done?
I was just gonna say, let's just chill until they kick us out.
Okay.
But I think there's another. There is another session. There's the fireside chat actually coming up next, so people probably want to come to that next session.
Yeah. To Keitia's point, I mean, the self-determination, I mean, I think part of that is what you were talking about, Dominique. I feel like that's a vestige of self-determination. Of course, there are many ways that can like manifest, but for you to take the risk as a small business owner who is moving from commission to commission, like so many of us do, moving from, you know, it's a hustle. You got to move quickly, you know, efficiently and manage your time. You have to steward your time quite wisely. So for you to have the nerve, the gall to say, well, actually, no, I'm not going to be able to get that to you until this time. And to feel and to be unapologetic about it, even if inside you're like, I need to move faster. I need to, because the pressure's on you. I think that's a vestige of self-determination. You know what I mean? Because you are willing to take that risk. It's a huge risk. And I've definitely lost customers before too. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to do that right now. I'm not going to be able to meet that deadline.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to do what you're asking for that price, if you want my full attention. And so it's like the respect for oneself, but also for the labor of my ancestors, which was stolen. The labor of, you know what I mean? Like that's self-determination too. I don't know if that's what Kesia was talking about, but I think there's a lot of ways that could look. But I think that's me feels like, yeah, no.
Yeah, exactly. All right, y'all. I think we do have to start heading out.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to y'all. We'll head back to the main stage.
Bye.
Peace.